22nd day of Ukrainian resistance. This is Medіацентру Ukraina. We start this morning with talking to the chairperson of the board of the Pension Fund of Ukraine, Yevhenii Kapinus. Good morning. Good morning. So our question to you is straightforward and difficult. Tell us about the pension fund status currently. A wonderful question to start with. Unfortunately, I have to report that the situation overall with the pension fund, as in the country in general, is challenging. However, we are in a good condition. Still, we are actively providing the services that are the mandate of the pension fund. We are paying out the pension allowances according to the Ukrainian legislation. Moreover, to discuss the first months of war, we paid out the allowances ahead of the schedule, and I think it is a very good dynamics. Tell us about the deficit or the profit of the pension fund and the trends you've been seeing recently. Well, let me start addressing your question with saying how grateful we are to the Ukrainian businesses who, despite the dire situation, despite the circumstances that we have found ourselves in, the businesses are paying their due. And if we consider the revenues paid in from the beginning of the year, we received 10 billion revenue in excess of the last year's performance. These last few months, the situation has deteriorated, and in April, we have received the same level of revenues as last year. We predicted somewhat better for performance before the war, but still it is a major victory. It is indicative that although we are under extremely difficult circumstances, the business is honoring its commitment, say as the government is honoring its commitment. We're paying out the allowances in full, and that is enabling us to ensure funding to pay out the pension fund liabilities, making sure the retired people receive their pension allowances on time and as scheduled. In March, we conducted the indexation of the accounts planned for the time, and people are receiving the pension allowances as they were planned before the war, but also with all the indices that were enshrined in the Ukrainian legislation. How optimistic can we be that this trend is going to stay when the government is able to deliver on its commitments? What are your prospects? Perhaps considering that in the most challenging times, in the beginning of the full-out war, we were able to pay our commitments ahead of schedule and in full volume. I'd say this is a good prerequisite to say that the same is going to stay true in the future. As of today, I cannot envisage any hindrances that would sway this situation. Paying pensions to the internally displaced people. How have you been able to do it? What will you be doing? What do the IDPs need to know? That is one of the challenges we're tackling these days. We've seen that in the first months of war, there will be significant displacement of the Ukrainian people, and people will head towards safer area. So a number of approaches were designed in order to address the situation so that the person, no matter where they are located, would be able to receive their pension allowances? Let me break that question down into two. Firstly, there are IDPs receiving their pensions to their bank accounts, and those who have done so earlier were able to withdraw the money wherever they were, having no difficulties. The transfers to the bank accounts were made uh, on a regular basis, and people had unlimited access to their money from wherever they were. The second category of people, the people who received their pensions at the postal offices, and they had to stay home in order for the pension to be delivered to their home. Considering the displacement, we came out with an approach when a person could go to any postal outlet of the pension fund or Ukrainian postal company, wherever they were in Ukraine, and still be able to receive the pension, having reported their location and say that they would like their pension to be paid there. So this is a two-pronged approach. People could either get their pensions in a postal office or uh, have a transfer of the money in the savings account, a savings bank account, and get their pension there. So we try to accommodate the different circumstances so that no matter where people ended up with, they would be able to get their pension allowance without any hindrance, without any delay. Do you have any verified information about the numbers of IDPs who received the pension allowances to their bank accounts or the pensions paid out in cash? Well, we received 5,000 requests of people who were displaced, who wanted to receive their pension allowances there. But most people went to the postal office outlets and they uh, transferred the money internally so they would have the exact numbers. We handled 5,000 requests from such people. Thank you. Paying the pensions to the people in the deoccupied territories. Are you resuming the payouts? Can you give us some more insights about that? Thank you for your question. Let me say that we try to make every effort so that the people could be in a position to have access to the full range of services delivered by the pension fund in the deoccupied territories. We reopened our branches in Kyiv region, in Lviv, Bucha, Borodyanka. Currently, we are working to open our outlets in Kharkiv region so that people would have access to the key services of the pension fund. Moreover, in the regions when people face difficulties, we try to make the information available about the phone numbers people can call to access the pension fund services. As for the deoccupied territories, the payments that are made to the bank accounts are transferred automatically and in full. And as to the postal payments, the postal service is sparing no effort to deliver the full range of services, and this is confirmed as in the deoccupied services, postal service was amongst the first to reopen its operation in order to offer payments to the people. It's Kharkiv region and Kyiv region, as well as Sumy regions. They have ramped up their mobile operation and stationary operations most efficiently in order to expedite the payments on the territory. I have an even more challenging question for you. What happens to the pensioners in the occupied territories, in the cities like Kherson, Melitopol, Berdyansk, what is the situation like on the ground there? This is one of the most difficult questions currently. The question of paying out the allowances. The retired people who use their bank accounts have their pensions accrued to their accounts, and they can use their card to make payments or to withdraw cash from the banks that are still operating. A number of banks have continued their banking operations. They experienced some shortages because they could not replenish their cash vaults, but nevertheless, banking system performed the best it could in the regions. As for the postal payments, we have to say that currently the postal service too spared no effort to make the payments according to the plan, and now the postal stations are making payments in Zaporizhia, where the hostilities are raging, in Donetsk as well as Luhansk region, and this shows that despite the challenges, we persevere and deliver on the commitments we have undertaken to provide payments to the people. Naturally, there are difficulties in the regions where active hostilities are developing. No, not all places are accessible. Not all payments can be expedited accordingly. If that is the case, the way out is for the person to relocate to a safer place and be able to receive the payments once they've relocated. If the people cannot relocate, then we guarantee that the payments will either be accrued on the bank accounts as the money belongs to the person once it's been transferred to their account, or if it's a case of person receiving the payments through the post, they will receive their entitlement after the deoccupation. Thank you very much for your insights. We talked to Yevhenii Kapinus, the chairperson of the board of the Pension Fund of Ukraine. Our next briefing is at 11. We will talk to Oleksiy Honcharenko, an MP who is currently attending the Davos World Economic Forum. See you.